Hello, I'm Brian Anderson and welcome back to Beyond the Breakthrough, our series where we hear from existing and former pros about their youth careers. Thank you very much for spending your time watching and listening to this video. Please like, share, leave us comments below about what you'd like to hear, or even better, share this with another parent, coach or youth player about what they could learn from this series. Today we've got former professional player Conrad Balatoni, who played over 300 professional games throughout the professional leagues in Scotland, including over 100 games in the top flight. Thanks to Conrad for doing this, and I hope you enjoy this session. Conrad, thanks very much for doing the Before the Breakthrough series with us, and welcome along to do that. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. Right, we're about to find out these quick fire questions I've done are all about what you would ask a defender, right?
Yeah, okay.
Fizzy or flat juice?
Fizzy.
Zonal or man-to-man?
Man-to-man.
High line or low block?
Low block.
Low block. Defend or attack a corner?
Attack.
Attack. So goals rather than...
always want the glory.
Quite right. Right, so this is all about your youth career. Why don't we start at the very start? What's your sort of first, when did football come into your life? What age were you? What was the environment and scenario like, if you can even remember?
So I was literally a little toddler. As soon as I could start walking, I was pretty much kicking a balloon about and playing football in my house. And then just kind of spiraled from there, and just obviously moved on to football, and then just kind of grew and grew and grew. And my first memories are kind of birthday parties. My sister's, my birthday parties with balloons, getting a ball and just absolutely leathering it and having a bit of fun with it. So was that even before primary school and all that kind of stage of life? Or yeah, it was pretty early on, to be fair. I wouldn't be able to say exactly what age it was, but it was pretty much 1, 2, 3 was kind of how young I was. Just a natural talent of kicking a balloon about the house. So yeah, and then obviously it kind of taken from there. I had 2 sisters, so I never had anyone else to kind of play with. So it was playing by myself in the house, in the living room, kicking balloons places, trying to head the ball and stuff like that. So just the usual stuff that you do when you're an only male child.
Only boy child.
Yeah.
What give us like the high level timeline of youth teams and how your sort of youth career transpired.
Yeah, so I grew up in Leeds, and from a young age I actually got invited over to Leeds Academy for a little bit, and I went there. And
how does that come about?
I was playing for a local team, and pretty much, I don't know, I can't really remember because it was that long ago, but I'm pretty sure someone reached out and said, "Look, I would like you to come along to train with Leeds." And I was like, "Oh yeah, cracking!" I was a big Leeds fan, so that was brilliant. But back then I was like humming and hawing about whether or not I wanted to go into be a goalkeeper or not.
Oh right, okay.
So
what age would this have been?
I must have been about 6, 7.
Right, okay.
And I went in, and I remember I went into my first day and I took my goalie gloves in, and they were like, "Why you got goalie gloves?" I was like, "Oh, because I'm a goalkeeper." And they were like, "Goalkeepers don't train on this night." I was like, "All right," but anyway, I ended up that I played outfield anyway, and I did all right. So I don't think I signed for them though. And then that's when I moved up to Edinburgh, and then I actually we didn't know anyone up here, so we didn't know any clubs or anything like that. So it was actually one of my next door neighbours' sons played for a team called Fernieside, and went and joined them and kind of played for them from the age of maybe 8, 9 until I was about 13, 14. And then I got asked on to Hearts, and then I signed for Hearts, and then I was at Hearts from the age of 14 up until I was 21, pretty much. So
see that as well. So how, I always find these things quite fascinating, right? How does that come about? Like, do you know you're one of the better players in the league, the region, and all that at Fernieside, and then they're maybe trying to find somewhere for you to go, or is it a scout network?
No, they were pretty keen to try and keep me here for as long as possible. I think it was. There was, just before I signed for Hearts, I'd been kind of tapped up by Hutchie Vale, and obviously Hutchie were back then. They were like one of the biggest boys clubs going, and they've got quite a renowned youth policy of SPFL. So my head was kind of turned at that point. I thought, I'm going to go play with some really good players, but then Hearts came along and says, "Look, we don't want you signing for Hutchie. because they'll make it difficult if you go and sign for us. I was like, all right, fair enough. So I stayed at Fernside, and then literally Hearts came along and said, it was a scout after one of my games. I remember there was 2 scouts, and they came up to our manager after. I said, look, we'd like to have a chat with Conrad. We're from Hearts, and they pulled me aside and said, look, we'd like you to come along for a training session on, I think it was like next week or the week after, stuff like that. And it just kind of went from there, and just went and did quite well, and then signed permanently there, and then that was it.
The rest is, as I say, so 13, 14, that's quite a formative age to be going into a big club as it is in Scotland. What was that experience like, just internally and externally?
It was nervous for me because I'd never kind of been in that setup, and I thought I was a good player, and I played central midfield when I played at my boys' club, and literally I went in there and I trained, and I was like, wow, I was like, these guys are good, and I was like, I'm not anywhere near these types of players' levels. Because these boys had been playing it maybe from 8, 9, 10. So they'd always kind of came up. So I was like, it was kind of a bit of an eye-opener. I was like, geez, I was like, this is a good standard. I was like, I'm not nowhere near the best player here. And I wasn't, but I kind of worked hard at it, and I kind of got myself up to that level that they were at and stuff like that. So it was good. It was a bit of a culture shock because, you just playing with your mates to then playing with pressure, because once you go in there, you're pretty much trying to win a contract against all these other players to go in full time at the age of 16. So the pressure comes in massively at that point, and you're kind of not used to it. So it's kind of a massive learning curve. It was a big learning curve for me about how to deal with that, and that you have to be on it every training session, every game, because you never know who's watching you and who's making the decisions behind the doors that you don't see.
See that sort of boys' club breeding, if you want, for a better phrase. What do you think is in that sets you up well to go into an academy or into another team? Because a lot of people I've spoke to about their youth careers that have done that all talk about almost the imposter syndrome as soon as they get into the academies, but quickly the self-belief comes and the ability to work within a dressing room.
Yeah, I mean, when you're in the boys' club, and obviously when you're kind of one of the better players or the best player in the team, everyone kind of looks at you. So the pressure's on you at that point as well, because if maybe you're getting beat, they expect you to step up, maybe create a goal, score a couple of goals. So, you've always got to have that self-belief that you can do it. And when you go into an academy and, you realise that these players are really good and they've been there for a number of times, you kind of you get taken aback a little bit, but then your self-belief comes in, you say, well, actually, I'm a good player as well. I wouldn't be here if I wasn't a good player. And you just need to kind of settle your nerves and get used to it. And the only difference is yes, they're better players, but everything's just done a little bit quicker when it goes into that academy stage. So it's just getting that one-touch pass in, that one-touch pass. Everything that the good footballers have is the decision-making. It's getting that decision-making improved when you go into those academies, because effectively when you're in there, you can be a good player just by using your brain and using your football knowledge. And that's kind of what I did, because I just kind of learned quicker, and I kind of understood the game and what the coaches asked of me. I implemented it, and I kind of progressed and gradually got better and better as time went on.
Yeah, that makes sense. See, did you notice? So you've obviously talked about the player ability. What about, this could be semi-controversial, the sort of coaching differences in approaches and how they spoke to players, or even just the drills? Was there a noticeable?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. So I coached the Christoph and Dynamo 2017s just now, and sometimes I'm when we're all speaking, all the coaches, sometimes the kids are still mucking about and messing about. Whereas if you go to one of these academies, you'll not see that. There's a respect, and it's also because the kids are there because they want to be the best that they can. Whereas I think when you're at the boys' club level, reality is some boys are just doing this for fun and enjoyment and stuff like that, and that's absolutely fine. But the difference is the coaches there, they know what they're talking about, they know exactly what they're doing, and if you don't listen, you'll soon find out that you're going to be out the door, because ultimately they're not there to be a babysitter. They're there to kind of improve you and to effectively get you into the first team, even from as young as 10, 11, 12. That's what they gear up for. They gear up for the players coming in to progress to hopefully generate a first team appearance and then generate money for that club in the future. So the coaching it's always going to be different. You know, these guys have been doing it a number of years. They've had much higher qualifications than what probably anyone in Christoph and Dynamo has. You know what I mean? So I've not even got the badges, but you know, you know that there's a difference in the way that they speak and the way that they kind of command a little bit of respect. But I think also the players have that respect for the coach as well because they want to get better. I think that's the biggest difference.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. That's who do you think's driving that attitude? Do you think it's internally from the players, or do you think?
I think it's a bit of both. To be fair, I don't think academy clubs will accept players going in and messing about and stuff like that because that has a detrimental effect on everyone else there. And I think the players themselves are there because they want to be the best. They ultimately are there because they're the best players at that age. And that means that if they want to progress and improve, they have to listen, they have to learn, and they can't be messing about. Otherwise, they will just get overtaken by other players that do the things correctly. And it happened with a lot of players at my age. Some really, really good players, much better than me, but they didn't quite grasp it, or they maybe mucked about a little bit. And other players started kind of overtaking themselves, and they were kind of left behind. And for them, they didn't have a career in the game.
Did you take your goalie gloves to the Hearts trip?
No, by that time I was well and truly done with the goalie gloves.
That is one thing I was going to ask you though. Like, so my knowledge of you would be as a defender, but you said you played midfield and you fancied a stretch in goals. What's your sort of experience of different positions and how that helps or hinders you as a development player?
So when I was younger, I think most kids, I mean, my wee boy's the exact same now. He loves being in goals. I don't know if it's just the whole diving aspect and getting muddy and stuff like that, but he loves it. So I was very similar. I loved going in goals, and I was always like, I want to be a goalie. But I remember my coaches, when I came up to Fernside, I still quite like going in goals, and I said to my coach, like, I'd love to go in goals. He says, well, Conrad, if you've got a twin, then you can go in goals. But so you're playing outfield. I was like, right, fair enough. So like, I knew I was too good to go in goals, put it that way. But at the same time, I was like, I really wanted to be a goalie. So
was there somebody that you loved, like David Seaman or something?
Just loved going in goals. Don't know why it was. Just enjoyed kind of getting balls smacked at me and me trying to save them. So I did that, and then obviously when I went to Hearts, like I played centre mid for my Fernside boys too. But I think most of the best players will play kind of in that central position, and I was like head and shoulders above most people there. And then when I went to Hearts, I played centre mid. I thought, this is a lot harder than what I've been used to. And they were like, I remember they said they did an exercise where it says, look, there's a sheet of paper there, we want you to write down your 3 best favourite positions. And I think I put like centre mid, right mid and left mid. I was like, and then actually one day they put me in centre back, and I was like, actually I was quite good at that. And I was pretty decent, and I got a lot of touch of the ball, I was good, and I got a lot of praise. I thought, so I spoke to the coaches after, I says, what do you think? They went, we think you could be a really good central defender. Did
you enjoy it as well?
I did, yeah, I did enjoy it, and it was good because I probably realised that my technical ability wasn't at the level that I needed to be to progress as a central midfielder or like a striker or anything like that. So I kind of early on I was kind of like, do you know, actually probably this will be my favourite position. The game in front of me, I read the game very well. I was quite good on the ball. I was technically quite a good centre half, and I was tall for my age as well. So it kind of ticked all the boxes for me. So I just kind of said to him, look, I said, I quite fancy maybe playing more often at centre half if that was me going to get a game. Because I thought if I play centre mid, I'm not going to play in front of the boys that are better than me. So I thought, well, for me to play, I maybe need to take a step back and say, actually, I'll play in this position and try and master it. And luckily for me, it kind of just snowballed from there.
It's actually quite a mature way of thinking for a 14, 15, 16-year-old.
Yeah.
I always think it's like quite interesting. Are you retrospectively making that sound like more of a analytical and mature decision, or was it actually as structured as that?
Generally, it was. I remember it was like they said to me, pick 3 positions. And I said I chose those positions, and they put me in centre half. I thought, that's good. And I thought maybe I'm not as good. I thought if I play centre mid, I was like I won't play because there was some really good players at my age level, boys that had been down to Aston Villa and all that stuff, so good players.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm maybe just going to struggle here a wee bit. And if I wanted to be a professional footballer, I need to make sure that I'm playing in a position that I'm going to be the best at. And the reality was when I went into centre half, I ended up being the best centre half at that age level. And I was always kind of at the top end of my game and one of the better players in that position as I went through the 17s, the 19s, reserves and stuff. And then ultimately I got my chance at going on loan. So,
is it in around about this period then that you think I've got a question I like to ask is there a moment where you sort of go, right, I've got a chance here, like whether it's like one moment or like one game or one bit of feedback from a coach, but sounds like you've maybe actually had like an evolution to your game that's maybe been the
moment. It was. I think when I started playing centre half, like we obviously played games, and I was like coming off it, and I thought I'm actually doing really well here. And I think we went down to England and we played like Arsenal, and we played a couple of other teams and stuff like that in a couple of tournaments. And like the coach was like, you were like I remember one of them actually said to me, what is it, the sky's your limit, Conrad. And I was like, wow. I was like, that was good. So I was like, right. I was like, well, if I'm playing really well here, then I'll keep going, and if I can keep progressing, I've got a wee chance. So and I think I probably changed that. That must have been about 13, 14 that I decided to go as a centre half. So it was quite quickly after going into the academy that transition happened, and then it's just kind of snowballed. And probably the thing that made me think I've got a chance here was I think we turned 15, and we were playing, and they brought me and two other lads in separately with our mums, and they said, listen, we're going to offer you a pre-contract for going in full time. And I thought that doesn't really happen that often at that stage. So there was me and two of the boys, and I think it was because there was a little bit of chat about maybe some other clubs taking an interest to me or liking to me. So I think they were like, right, we'll try and we'll get him on a pre-contract and we'll get him. So I knew at the age of 15 that I was pretty much going to be going in full time, and that at that point I was like, I've got a chance if I go and keep doing well. And then for me, I was very fortunate that at 16, 17, I was playing under 19 football, but I was also, I got drafted into the reserves a little bit. So I played in the reserves when I was 16. And I kind of thought, I wouldn't be doing this if I wasn't highly thought of. And then I just kind of kept progressing. And then obviously I went on loan at Thistle, and that's kind of where my career started.
So that was like a lot of almost like on-pitch progression, right? See how committed and serious to it were you, like away from that? Like, so as you go through those ages, you've just said to me there's lots of different risks, like socialising, like even just 17, 18-year-old getting into the periphery of Hearts, your ego might get inflated, and you sort of, there's loads of different ways that you could sort of drift out the game at that stage, which happens. How do you manage that, or did you?
Yeah, it was probably the biggest one for a lot of people is the socialising aspect of things. Going out, your friends are going out, maybe starting going uptown, or going out for some drinks and stuff like that. And, like, don't get me wrong, like, I enjoyed myself, but I was never over the top. I never got myself in trouble. I was always quite reserved. My mum was quite strict. She wasn't strict on me, but she kind of kept me grounded and stuff like that. And we had a good upbringing and stuff like that. So I knew that ultimately, talent was only 80% of what you need. So talent's only 20% of what you need. The rest is hard work, dedication, and stuff like that. So I was always in the mindset. I always worked really hard. That was one thing that I always did. I always grafted, like treated every training session like it was my last, and I always put in 100% effort. And that's kind of still what I do now when I play 7s or 8s or 5s, or play with the amateurs on Saturday.
Do you know that's a really interesting point that not many people actually mention, and you see like some of the people that get to the very, very top of their discipline. Like, so Tom Brady always says your game should feel easy because your training should be hard, and people actually don't realise that is such a
like I went through my career with some players that have unbelievable ability, but then they don't really work hard in training, and then it comes to a match, and like they're a bit part player, they're in and out. They'll have one unbelievable game, and you're thinking he is incredible, and then he'll have 5 or 6 where it's just he's a man down, and you'd be better just staying off the pitch. I was very opposite. I knew I didn't have the natural talent as a lot of these professional footballers had, but I worked hard, and I knew the game, and that was one thing that I've kind of learned pretty well was, I was able to read the game quickly. I knew where I needed to be. I knew my position. I knew the positions of other players because I'd been brought up through Hearts with an academy with a great coach, teaching everyone where you should be. And I always, that's why I try and instill it with like our young lads. Was like, you need to know different positions because you need to know where you should be when they've got the ball, and you want to know where you should want them to know where they should be if you've got the ball. I was like, so you need to, like, that's what I knew. I knew where I needed to be when people had the ball. And that was just through hard work and, listening to my coaches.
When experience, you mentioned your mum. What's the sort of supportive environment off pitch like for you?
Yeah, it was good. So my mum and dad broke up when I was younger, so that's why we moved up to Edinburgh. So my mum was the one pretty much that took me to most of my training sessions when I was at Hearts, until I could get the bus. So she would drop me off, and obviously it was like 2 or 3 nights a week. I've got 2 sisters as well, so she put a lot of dedication into kind of me getting where I was. So I know for a fact that I wouldn't have been able to get to or have the career that I've had if it wasn't for her putting in. Did
she come to games? And
she tried. She never really gave me feedback. She kind of like she had to learn the rules pretty quickly, and obviously as time goes on, you start getting offsides. And she's like, I need to learn the offside rule now and all that stuff. So, but we used to go over to Northern Ireland for the Milk Cup and stuff like that with Hearts, and she'd come over and watch that with me and stuff like that, or support us over there with some of the other parents that were going over. So she put in a lot of time and effort to see me and progress and stuff like that. And she'd always kind of help me but at the end of the day, I always kind of knew that she didn't really know what she was.
So was she saying like, listen to your coaches and try hard rather than you should work on receiving the ball?
And she should sometimes be like, oh, you did that really well, or you did that wasn't great and stuff like that. Or like I'd sometimes say like, oh, well, the coach said this about my performance or this about me. She goes, oh, what are you going to do about it? So I was like, well, I'll have to start working on it, or whatever. So the reality is that I know that she wasn't a big football fan when she was growing up. So it's one of those ones where, and I didn't really have a father. My dad was in my life, but I didn't really have a father figure, so I kind of had to. It was my mum that kind of stepped into it and stuff like that. So, so I do appreciate it. So thanks, mum.
Definitely
for all that stuff.
Christoph and Dynamo, thank you as well. So, what about? I want to just sort of find out like key highs and key challenges. So, what across all that, other than getting that moment that says you're going to get signed, what can you remember being the sort of bits that gave you the most joy, and then the bits that you had to really work through?
Through my whole career, or just my youth career?
Just youth.
Yeah. My biggest one through my youth was probably, there was. It's hard because I never really had any like really bad moments, if that makes sense.
Any injuries or
no? So that's what I mean. I was always, I was always fit, healthy. I played every game. I very rarely had any setbacks. Probably the one things that like stick out is just like maybe when you do have a bad game, when the coach maybe has a bit of a bollock on you, because at that age when you're 14, 15, like they're gearing you up for going into into full-time football, and at full-time football it's a different kettle of fish with coaches. It is pure. It's about winning and progressing and stuff like So it's different. So they're sometimes bollocking you, if you've had a bad performance or, a bad result and stuff like that. And I've seen some bad rollickings from coaches at like 14, 15, 16. So it sets you up in that. And sometimes it's on you, or you make a mistake and stuff like that. And it's like,
are you the type of player that responded well to getting that type of... Or were you into your shell?
No, I was actually all right, to be fair. Like, it wasn't nice and stuff like that. But at the same time, it was kind of like, well, you're going to have to go out and play. Like the whole, during that age, the whole point of playing was to try and get a professional contract, to become a professional footballer. That was my dream. That was what I wanted to do since I was literally a little boy. So I had an opportunity. I had one hand on it. I needed to make sure that whatever happened, I didn't kind of go into my shell and give them an option or an opportunity to turn around and say, we don't think you've got the mentality for it. Because if you make it as a footballer, everyone that you interview that's made it as a footballer will say that you've got to have the right mentality to become a footballer.
What about a few people, when you ask that question, say mix of characters in the dressing room really was an enjoyable Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then weekend. Did you have that, or were you not? Were you? I was going to say not unlucky. That's not even a phrase. Was your dressing room?
No, we were right. To be fair, we had quite a good dressing room. We were very close knit, so we had a few people from Glasgow, Falkirk, Edinburgh. So we did have quite a mixed bag, and it's good because that's fine. And when you're young, you all just want to play and just enjoy it and stuff like that. And you learn about football banter and stuff like that, so that's fine. But it's when you go into the academy, like when you actually go into full-time academy, like as in a full-time professional contract, that's slightly different because you're getting maybe boys up from England, you're getting boys from abroad and stuff like that. So it does mix. But we always had a very good close-knit group, and I have some of my best memories are, in the well, it wasn't the Orient when I was there, but it was the old Hearts Academy. So in there, like having banter with the boys in the boot room, turn the lights off, getting polishing everyone and stuff like that. So you build a decent camaraderie with everyone, because ultimately, yes, you're all fighting against each other to try and get a first team debut or contract, but at the same time, if you don't have your teammates helping you out, it's going to be
you all need to be successful for one of you
exactly
to be successful.
And I think that's ultimately that's what academies are. They'll maybe only have one or two people that they think will make a success out of it, but at the same time they need to fuel the team, and they need those players to progress, so they have to bring in other players, and sometimes it can work for you and sometimes it can work against you, because sometimes these players that come in, they might not have been in anyone's minds of making it as a first team player, but they progress and they do really well, and they're like, they take a step back and think, well, this guy's overtaken the boy that we thought was going to be really good, and they get that opportunity.
See, as a boys club coach at the moment, I know your group are the 2017, so they're not that old yet as such. Do you reflect on everything you've just said there in terms of the experiences you had to then think about how you want to coach, how you want to try and help them develop?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very. I try and explain to them that it's standards and discipline, and listening to coaches, listening to having respect to your teammates, because they are young and they're developing and stuff like that. And they sometimes get a little bit angry with each other and stuff like that. But it's about trying to stop that. And I'm a big believer. I've always said, like, reality is it's very difficult to become a professional footballer. But what my coaching journey is to try and make these kids good human beings, and make them kind of disciplined, make them work hard, and make sure that if there's setbacks, how to deal with it in the right way, and not actually become aggressive or cause more issues for them in the future. And I think if I can do that over a number of years and they turn into good people, I'll be delighted with that. That's kind of that's why I've got into coaching, is to make them better players, and hope make them better players, but also make them better people.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that about, it's very hard to become a professional player, because I think the stats are something like less than 1%.
Yeah,
but
1% of 1%, pretty much.
But how many people still play amateur football? And I mean, I'm playing over 35s football. It's not like you fall out of the ability to play sports. No. It's so learning all those things you said, to maintain that throughout your life.
I mean, I've said to my wee boy Theo, I said, look, you might never make it as a footballer. I was like, but what I'd like you to do is be able to play with your mates on a five-a-side, play with your mates on a Saturday, because football is great, but the best thing about football is the memories that it makes. I couldn't really tell you many of the games that I played unless something good happened in it. But I can tell you when we won the league and the nights out that I had and the memories that I made with my teammates during that, and all the events that we've had since then, that I've kind of like benefited from that. And that's what I want them to have the option to be able to do, is create memories and, build friendships, and actually, teamwork, and it sets you up nicely for actually going into adult life, I think. So that's kind of what I say to my wee boy.
Yeah, no, I agree with all that. Right, I asked ChatGPT if it got the option to ask you one question, what would it ask you? And it said, right, we might have actually covered this, but I'll ask you anyway, right? What was the single most important moment or influence in your youth career that convinced you could become a professional footballer? It's a big, broad question as well, to be fair.
Probably probably that moment down in England when we were playing against, you know, some good teams and stuff like that, and like we played, and like one of the coaches, I knew I'd played well, but when you hear like a coach turn around and saying like, kind of like, the sky is your limit, like that gives you so much confidence, and you're thinking, I've got a right good chance here if I can keep progressing. And like there's also times like dads of other kids were speaking to my mum, and my mum actually told me this, not at the time, but she told me a little bit later. She was like, they were like, I don't think you realise how special Conrad could be in football. Now, I didn't go and have an amazing career, but I think just to make it as a professional is pretty special in its own right.
And play over 100 top flight games in Scotland.
So things like that. I think my mum told me that when I was a little bit older, but again, like that just gives you so much confidence and stuff like that. My mum probably didn't really understand what that meant, but I think when dads that know football are saying like he's special, he could be really good, then obviously it gives you a load of confidence.
So 2 more questions. What about favourite coaches over your youth career? Can you remember who they are and why they made it? To your favourites?
There was, I've got, in my youth coach, I've got probably 3. There was a couple of guys, I think it must have been when I was about under 14s, 15s, two guys called John and Lenny, and they were brilliant, they were fantastic, really good guys, just really like nice to work under, and you know, enjoying. They were very knowledgeable, and they give us a lot of, you know, confidence and stuff like that. And, you know,
so what nice to work under, as in like
just
sessions
like
are good, communication.
Yeah, sessions are good. Like everyone just enjoyed going to see them because they were good laugh. Like they had fun with the boys. They didn't make it all like, yes, they got, you know, they were able to kind of keep the standards high and stuff like that, but they weren't. It wasn't like it was army training and like regimented. Like it was fun. It was good to go. The biggest influence that I had in my youth career, and I probably didn't get him until a little bit later, but a coach called Darren Murray.
Oh
so
yeah, he's got the DM Elite.
DM Elite, yeah. So I take my little boy there, and I've personally, I don't think there's a coach that's better than him, and that was in youth football. That's my opinion. And when I said to you before about how you have to learn positions and learn it, he was the one that kind of taught that, and it was like it stuck in my memory. It was like, if it wasn't for him, I generally don't think I would have taken my game to the next level when I got a little bit older and got into like under 15, 16s, 17s and stuff like that, because that was kind of when he came into it. Yeah.
So the reason he sticks out is because of the way he managed to teach you about the game.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
He was an absolute hothead, and he'll admit that. But he's a great guy, and he's a fantastic coach. And it's one of those ones where I say, like, you don't need to be a professional footballer to be a good coach.
Yeah.
You just need to be a good coach to be a good coach.
Yeah.
And he is a good coach. So I was very, very lucky that I worked with him. There was things that he did that still to this day I speak about with like my friends and stuff like that when we played, and like how that benefited us, and you know how it's ultimately he instilled discipline, he instilled kind of hard work and all that stuff more than what I already had.
When you say that, do you mean like punishment's the wrong word for not applying the right attitude?
Yeah, I mean, it's like I'll give you an example, right? So not a punishment, but it was a punishment, but not. So I was actually injured at this time, but I still remember this like it was yesterday. So we'd been when we were at Hearts at that point, you know, it was a little bit different to now. Like we had jobs to do. So one of our jobs was to sweep and mop the floors, and someone who was on that job never did it, and he came down and he went absolutely mental. And he says, right, get outside. And we went out, and the boys had to fill up buckets, and they had to get mops, and they had to run as a team with mops and buckets above their heads, up and down hills, because we didn't do our jobs properly. But people might think that's ridiculous, but we didn't miss that again.
No, it teaches you the value of doing that.
Yeah. So as much as it was quite brilliant, you probably wouldn't be able to get away with that in this day and age.
I don't think you would do that with like under 10s either.
No. But again, like, you know, that's what he did. He instilled the discipline and stuff like that. And yeah, it's one of those ones where obviously younger, you can't be doing that when you've got young kids and stuff like that. But it's all like they try and instill that discipline, you know, about timekeeping and being late and you know, we weren't allowed to have earrings in when we went to training. It was like you'd get in trouble if you had earrings in and all that stuff with the wrong kit. So yes, wrong boots was a big one, obviously, if we played on grass. So
Do you know what's quite funny? Like my son, he's a year younger than your son. He doesn't understand when I tell him he should be cleaning his boots every week.
yeah.
Which is, I don't know if that's just how we were brought up.
Oh yeah, like
Do you know what I mean?
it was like we had to clean our boots after, you know, if we got dirty boots, it was like you'd be
I know.
really nervous about going into the dressing
room. It was
room.
even like that in boys' club and initiative league. So
yeah.
Anyway, last one bit of advice or thought you would pass on to a youth player trying to navigate their way through the youth football world?
Work hard, listen to your coaches, and if you get a setback or if you have a bad game, just get it out of your mind as soon as possible. Because the good thing about football is that you make a mistake, and another game's just around the corner, and you never know who's watching you.
Yeah, you don't need to wait long for your next game.
Exactly that, yeah. That's a good, beautiful thing about football is that one bad training session, you've got a training session again to deal with it. One bad game, you've got another game the next week to rectify the wrongs. And that's kind of how I lived. I was always like, if you have a bad game, you do a bad moment, just don't do it again. Learn from it. And that's what the bigger thing as I say is you learn from your mistakes and make mistakes. And if you don't make mistakes, you're not learning.
Thanks very much for your time, mate.
No problem.
Much appreciated. Thank you for watching. We've got a great series to come with some fantastic existing and former professional players lined up. If this is something you'd be interested in sponsoring, when we've got over 100,000 engagement through our social media platforms on a monthly basis at the moment, please get in touch with me and see what packages we could arrange. Thanks again for watching.